G'day guys, welcome to our first online lesson. Crazy times, but hopefully we can make something of it. So just to recap what we have been talking about in our first 4 or so weeks of lessons. Obviously we're trying to kind of backstep a little bit and make sure you guys have that foundation of pentatonic improvisation and major and minor pentatonic improvisation. And now we're starting to blend that with mixolydian over dominant 7th chords. So I just want to make sure that you guys know the E form and the A form of the mixolydian scales, and that should provide a solid foundation for us to kind of improvise confidently moving forward over static dominant 7th chords. Okay, so what's really important with blending these scales together is not the scales themselves or the shapes or anything like that. It's actually the challenge of making something melodic, making something listenable out of those dots on a fretboard or whatever it is, notes on a page. So how do you do that? Well, there's no easy way around that, unfortunately. What you have to do is you have to listen to music. You have to transcribe music. Now, I don't mean transcribing as in writing it out necessarily, but you have to listen to music. You have to work it out. And when you're working it out, you have to have such a high or as higher attention to detail as possible, right? Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to learn from the professionals, the pros, right? The guys like Robin Ford, okay? So if we're talking about that video that's posted in the week 4 content, that's like a treasure trove of blending the pentatonics and the mixolydians together, and doing it in such a musical and melodic way. So I would certainly encourage you guys to go back over that video if you're sort of like, oh, okay, well, I've got these shapes under my fingers now, but I can't seem to make music out of it. It's like, shit, no kidding. You probably haven't listened to it, probably haven't transcribed anything. I mean, if you hadn't have done that, how would you ever know that, da 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 da, how would you know that that is a good melody, right? You wouldn't ordinarily play that. You might just play or something, like that. It's like, okay, well, that's just not as strong a melody. But the reason I know, and guys who have been doing it for a long time know that that's not a good melody is from kind of working stuff out and realizing what are good melodies. Doesn't mean that you couldn't make that work. It's just a process of kind of understanding where the melody lies within a scale. I mean, if we're going to go back to a pentatonic scale, for example, G pentatonic, okay, so everyone, I'm sure, could recreate that sort of like that, right? Now, that's kind of because that happens to be a really melodic part of that scale, and it just happens to kind of fall in that kind of position in the E form minor pentatonic scale, right? But there's no difference between that and the mixolydian scale. There's just like different kind of melodies hiding within that scale. So I'd certainly encourage you guys to look over that Robin Ford video and work out a couple of licks and sort of try and contextualize it in terms of what shapes he's using, maybe out between the minor and the major pentatonic or the mixolydian scale. Okay, so I've got a little bit to get through in the next lesson in terms of scale content. So what I'm going to get you guys to do is learn the E and the A form of the melodic minor and the harmonic minor. Okay, so the melodic minor, they'll all be up in the resources folder. The melodic minor, I think we touched on in our previous lesson. Now, the significance of the melodic minor and the harmonic minor, when we're talking about dominant seventh chords, is fairly big. It may not sort of seem that way because you're talking about a minor scale with a dominant seventh chord, but essentially what we're talking about is secondary dominance. So in certain songs we might have dominant chords that are like non-diatonic. So a diatonic seventh chord might be, if we're in the key of G, our seventh chord would be a D7, right? So secondary dominance, I don't want to go too far into the kind of theory behind secondary dominance just yet, but suffice to say that the melodic minor and the harmonic minor are the two scales that you'll use when you approach these secondary dominants. So a good example of a secondary dominant might be Georgia. It's early in the morning, I'll see how my voice goes. Georgia, Georgia, the whole day through, just an old sweet song keeps Georgia on my mind. Oh yeah, Georgia. Okay, so that second chord there is a B7. Okay, and the B7 is leading to an E minor. Now in that case, we're going to use a E harmonic minor scale. So Georgia, the whole day through. Okay, so that's just an example of a secondary dominant chord functioning in a song. So, and an example of me utilizing a harmonic minor scale, specifically an A form harmonic minor scale, E harmonic minor and A form, to essentially improvise around that chord. So it's a super important topic, but you guys need to know the melodic minor scale and the harmonic minor scale in E and A form. So I want you to work on that for next week. The other thing that that I would encourage you to work on is also the Lydian dominant and the super Locrian scale in E and A form. Now, if you're not sure what they are, you can look at the melodic minor scale PDF, Caged Melodic Minor, and that will give you an understanding of basically how to find the shapes. But I may put something up on the Lydian dominant and super Locrian in the future. But essentially they are simply the melodic minor shapes in the same way that the Mixolydian scale is a shape of the Ionian scale or the major scale. So, and as well, see if you can find a lick or two that you like from the Robin Ford video when he's playing over that G blues. Because we'll be able to talk about that a bit more and sort of contextualize that, and maybe I'll be able to kind of give you some pointers on time feel or nuance or whatever. And just to reiterate the test, next week will be on the Mixolydian in E form and A form, and I want to hear you guys improvising over a dominant 7, static dominant 7. I'll choose the key, and I want to hear you guys improvise over that using the minor pentatonic, major pentatonic, and Mixolydian together as melodically as possible, let's say. So work on that as well as your two, the melodic minor and harmonic minor scales. And I'll see you next week.